Kai is like, I call like he's my miracle baby. Like, so prior to having him, I had experienced a stillbirth and several other losses. Um, and so around 24 weeks, I was diagnosed IUGR while pregnant with Kai. And the doctors, they were awesome. They wanted to monitor me really closely because my stillbirth loss was also IUGR. And so at 24 weeks, they wanted to monitor me closely, two appointments a week until he was born. At 27 weeks, they realized that they wanted to admit me to antepartum. So I was admitted at 27 weeks, still with close follow up. I think we had two ultrasounds a week, and obviously I was in the hospital. And so they told me that they would keep him in. Well, at that time we didn't know if he was a boy or girl, but they told me they would keep Kai in as long as they could without going past 34 weeks. So I was thinking, I'm going to be in this hospital for a long time, but it was an awesome experience while there, no complaints. Um, and then around 30 weeks, they noticed that my amniotic fluid was getting low. So they said, let's not risk anything. We're going to take the baby. So they took him at 30 weeks. Um, and he was really tiny. He was born 1 pound 11 ounces, which was 775 grams. And they told me prior to taking him, they told me that he probably wouldn't cry when he was born, um, and he actually did cry, so I was excited about that. And so he ended up having a 52-day NICU stay in total. Um, but Kai was a rock star. He rocked the NICU. Um, he was he didn't have any health issues. He had some things where like he had to maintain his blood sugar, things like that. Like he was having some issues with that. But that was about it. He became a feeder grower quickly in his stay. He really was a rock star. Towards the end of his stay, probably the last 8 days, he actually spent at another NICU. It was a totally different experience because they didn't have the individual rooms. We weren't familiar with the nurses, things like that. And he's been home ever since and thriving. My doctor was Dr. Mantione and Dr. Seagrave Daly. And like I said, they were awesome. Those were my OBGYN doctors. Yeah. The whole time that I was in antepartum, they were awesome. They answered all questions that I had. They made sure that I was, aware of, what was going on. They just made it very easy for me to feel comfortable while I was in the hospital, even though like the first couple of days I think I was like going to go crazy. But Miss Sheila is awesome. She I don't even know how to explain her. She you can tell that she genuinely cares for the women that were on that antepartum floor. She made sure that we got together and ate. She made sure that the snacks were stocked. She made sure you got what you wanted for lunch, breakfast, and dinner. Um, it was uh, zero complaints. Like she literally is an angel on that floor, on that antepartum floor. So for me, it's like I said, I was transferred to another NICU, and it was like night and day, right? And so, coming from UPMC that had the individual rooms, that had the cameras, that had just different things that this other NICU didn't have, and I won't say where we were at, but they didn't have the private rooms, and that right there, like being at UPMC for all those days in the NICU, and then spending the last 8 days of his NICU stay somewhere that didn't have private rooms, it was challenging for me So, I really enjoyed the independent rooms, like the individual rooms. I enjoyed the cameras. I got so many pictures of Kai, of him in his isolette from the camera. My family got to see him on the camera, so that was phenomenal. So, I mean, why you should support the NICU one is because you never know if you or a loved one um, will have to, go through this journey. Because I never expected to go through this journey. Prior to, I never expected to have a baby in the NICU, and so supporting the NICU is a great cause because, like I said, you just never know if you or a loved one may have to experience this journey one way or another. So that's what I have to say.